1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All of it.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you. Always.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Reactions. We have a fun show today, and our show plans get thrown up in the air because there was massive breaking news today that we are going to be discussing as well. So let's get this started. I'm one half of your hosting team. I'm Aaron Harris, and joining me is my partner in crime, the David Motters. David, how's it going, brother?
Good, man. I thought you were going to say I'm your Baby Yoda to Mandalorian, but it's, again, that height issue thing. I guess I need to be the Mandalorian and you Baby Yoda. But I'm ready.
I like doing the little hand wavy thing, huh?
Exactly. Yeah, maybe. Yes. No, huge news today, and I'm definitely ready to react.
Oh, there's a lot to react to. There's been a lot going on, so let's take a step back and see what's happening. Probably the biggest news since we record. Well, it's not the biggest news, but the second biggest news since we recorded last is the fact that Lego and Star Wars have announced a new collector set. This is the Mos Eisley Cantina set. Now, there have been other Cantina sets released before, which are very small. This thing is massive. I mean, this thing has 3,187 pieces. It's got 21 minifigures, including the Cantina band, the bartender, some of the aliens around the area, some stormtroopers, but of course, you have Han, Chewie, Luke, Obi-Wan, R2, 3PO, Greedo is in here, so you can recreate your own Who Shot First scene.
Yeah.
And we all know who it was that shot first. And it wasn't Malarkey or McClunky, whatever it was.
McClunky, yes.
You can recreate that own Who Shot First scene. Then, of course, you have the newest figure, which actually is the figure that intrigued me the most, is the spy, the Imperial spy guy that was kind of following him around and reported to the Imperials where the droids were in the hangar bay. I just blanked on what kind of alien
he's a Kubaz.
There you go. What he said.
Yeah. Well, we see one at the beginning of Mandalorian season 1, episode 1, right? Yeah.
So that's going to be very cool to see. That actually is coming out October 1st. October 1st, that's coming out. So be on the lookout for that, all you Lego fans. But I think the biggest news centers around this little show that everybody likes. It might be slightly partial to about a little baby and his caregiver going on a journey. That's right, folks. We're talking Mandalorian tonight. So we are recording this on Tuesday, the 15th of September. Gosh, we're in September, man.
That's right.
Where has the year gone?
Well, that's that's a tough one. We get down on a rabbit hole in that. It seems like it's taken forever to get here, but also it seems like it's gone by pretty quick.
Exactly. As
Yeah.
where did it all go?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So that was a little rabbit hole. But yeah, today I'm sitting at work, which for me, working is at home now. And I'm sitting here and I'm working and I'm psyching myself up because I was interviewing for a different position at work today, and I was sitting here and I was getting myself all hyped up for the interview, which was going to be starting in about 20 minutes. I'm getting myself hyped up, and all of a sudden my phone goes off, and it says Mandalorian season 2 trailer, and I'm going, no, 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 not now, not now, come on, not now.
Yeah.
So I opened it up, and sure enough, we got a season 2 trailer. And this is after, was it last week they made the announcement? No, that they were, no, it was a couple weeks ago when they made the announcement they were releasing the first episode October 30th. It was right after we recorded our show.
Yeah.
They made that announcement after we recorded our last show. So they announced they were releasing it on 30th, but then today, boom, we get the trailer, boom, we get a new poster, and boy, the speculation is running rampant already. So,
Yeah.
first off, I got to know, David, because as soon as I saw it, I texted you and went, dude, trailer.
You did. Yeah. And I was trying to wait. Let me take a look here. So let me look. So let's see. So you did that. Okay. So no, it was perfect timing because you sent it to me at 10:04, and I'd finished my 9 o'clock client, so I looked and I could immediately watch it, and then started texting with you and stuff. And it was so cool. You'd sent the poster over, and and obviously the link to the trailer. Since then, I've watched it a bunch of times on Disney Plus, watched it at StarWars.com, and just picking up on little things here and there. It's just gorgeous, just gorgeous. Yeah, no, you did send it at the right time. I didn't know that you had all that going on at work though. So,
Oh, yeah. It was crazy day. And when that popped up, I about had a stroke. Going, oh! I immediately watched it, and then I messaged my current supervisor, messaged him, and went, dude, the Mando trailer dropped. He's like, all right, I'm looking for it now.
Oh,
and had to text him the thing. Man, I'll tell you what, Favreau and his team, they are so good at creating a trailer that gets you hyped up and tells you absolutely nothing about what's happening.
right, which is wonderful. Yeah.
Which is great. There's no hints, no leaks, no nothing about the storyline. All it does is tell you more of what we already knew at the end of season 1, which is, hey, he's going after he's going at looking for Yoda, the child's people, to return him.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
So that's really all this trailer tells us. But man, these clips that they have put in there are in there to hype you up.
Yeah.
And there's no way around that. I mean, this is purely a hype piece at this point, is what this was. And it worked.
Yeah.
It worked. Oh, obviously it worked for me. I mean, I loved it. I watched it twice, did my interview, then watched it immediately once the interview was over again. I think I may have botched the interview because I was thinking about the trailer, honestly. So let's look at the trailer for a little bit. And what jumped out at you the most about this trailer?
Well, of course, like you were saying, to set it up, I really like how they have the armor doing the voiceover from the last episode, season 1, episode 8, and you hear her setting the stage, and then they would cut to different clips, and so maybe the first thing that really sticks out is when she's talking about the Jedi sorcerers, and then they show Mando walking with Baby Yoda, and you see what looks like, a cloaked Jedi. And of course, I was texting you, you were texting back, and I did check out Twitter later tonight when I got home to see what kind of people were saying. But you were able to quickly tell me that that probably is not Ahsoka. So that was one of the first things that sticks out to me, was that Ahsoka. And it's not Rosario Dawson, it's Sasha Banks, right?
Yeah,
and,
it appears to be Sasha, the
yeah,
cloak figure.
yeah,
Sasha Banks. And there's a lot of debate about what character she's playing, too.
right. Are you seeing people talking about Sabine?
I've seen people talk about Sabine. Then there's that's a big taboo subject on social media right now about it being Sabine, and no, it's not. There are a lot of people getting into this about Sabine, it being Sabine. No, it's not Sabine, and this is why. And it's a little crazy right now. But it is Sasha Banks.
Yeah, she's a professional wrestler, right?
Yeah, she's currently a wrestler at WWE. So, which I had heard rumors she was going to be in this, so seeing that just confirmed it at that point. Probably the most interesting thing I saw today, and like I said, to preface this, we normally don't discuss rumors. We don't do speculating and stuff like that. We just tell you what we know. But there was somebody speculating online, and it just really intrigued me with their idea. It was in one of the threads where people were arguing about it being Sasha Banks being Sabine or not being Sabine. Yeah. And there was one person that interjected in there, and it was probably it just got me scratching my head. Was they said, no, Sasha's an Inquisitor.
Ooh. Especially with the black cloak, right?
With the black, the black cloak. Yeah. She has that if you watch it and look at her face, she's got a very hard and very stern, almost evilish face. Which I'm sitting there going, okay, well, that can make some sense. But she could be just another bounty hunter as well. So,
well, that's a good point too. That's a good point too. Yeah, but I think what kind of sets it up, and of course it could be misdirection, is the voice overlay again of the armor saying that there's the Jedi sorcerers, and they go boom right to that shot of Sasha Banks. So you tend to think they're trying to say, hey, this person is a Jedi. Or of some sort, right? Yeah, that is interesting. This is what, 7 years, roughly 7 now, maybe 8 years post Return of the Jedi. We see the Inquisitors back, Rebels. We see the Grand Inquisitor in Rebels, and of course just pre Episode 4. But we have Imperials. We've got Moff Gideon out there, and it could be a person working for Moff Gideon. Yeah,
very true, very true.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of speculating to be done, and it looks like we're going to see a lot of planets in this.
Yeah.
Opinion. There is a clip in the trailer. You see the sand person on the Bantha.
Yeah.
Tatooine? Are we returning to Tatooine?
It definitely feels like that. Yeah. Especially with seeing them in season 1, and they were definitely identified as Tatooine. Yeah, it looks like it. I really enjoyed it when they went back there. I'd love to see it again. You know.
I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah. What do you think?
That's I initially thought Tatooine too, but then again, I was always thought we'd only find the Jawas on Tatooine, and apparently there's Jawas on more than Tatooine.
Yeah.
So
Well,
so
little
who
side
knows?
note. Yeah, well, little side note. When you see The Mandalorian at the beginning, you were asking, things that stick out. I was watching it for the third, fourth, fifth, sixth time, and as he's walking into that darkened area, some city, on the left-hand side, you see kind of red eyes open up, and I immediately thought, again, a Jawa, off-planet Jawa, right? Off Tatooine Jawa, right?
Yeah,
Not yellow eyes, but red eyes, and so saw him over there down in the left-hand corner. But yeah, that stuck out. Yeah, obviously the bantha and the sand person. This ice planet, you were just talking about multiple planets. I saw some people saying, "Is it Ilum?" And don't know. Obviously, and like you said, it's kind of fun just to talk and think about some of these things. Like you said, you and I are, really good about not speculating. But I think when you have a trailer like this, it's fun to kind of talk a little bit about maybe just what we would hope to see, and that would be pretty neat, to see that. But this does look incredibly expansive, and then even something that you had texted me was that boat that you see,
hmm
and an Aqualish on it, kind of working as fishermen. I was looking,
yeah,
yeah, that was pretty neat.
yeah, and that's a topic that came up with some of my friends today. When he was watching is there's a boat. He goes, there's no boats in Star Wars. I'm like, okay, well, there's a boat in season 1 of The Mandalorian. There's a boat in The Last Jedi. Now, granted, when it goes over the edge of the waterfall, it just keeps going because it's also a spaceship or a yacht.
Yeah.
But
Oh, very
there were
good.
boats.
Oh.
No, I don't remember. And then I was trying to rack my brain whether or not there were any boats in on
Oh,
Nab. I want to say because
well,
me and another friend were talking about boats on Naboo.
Well, you know what I just remembered? There's a small little boat that Padme gets off of, steps off of it, and goes and has her interaction there with Anakin, where he talks about sand and it gets everywhere. But that's a small little kind of. It reminds me more of, well, because it's filmed in Italy, right? That whole scene, but it reminds me more of the boats that you see in Venice. That's what that one looked like. And of course, I talked to you about the BOGO. I think it's called a BOGO in episode 1. Yeah, the Phantom Menace, where
Yeah,
you want Qui-Gon and Jar Jar take it through the planet core, but when you see it come up out of the water and the top bubbles disappear, it's floating. It has that propeller in the back, but it's floating like a boat. So there's plenty of watercraft. You know, um, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But
So
I hear what you're saying.
now, what I also uh, found interesting in this was the opening sequence. You have the Razor Crest flying in around the planet, heading toward flying around this beige planet, heading toward this what looks like a lush water planet. And is it me, or does that ship look distressed?
It's funny because when you initially texted me this morning, I'm watching it on my phone in my office. Like I said, it's quiet in there, and my clients were gone, so I could just sit quietly for a minute. And I looked at it, and I was looking at the planet, which looks a little bit like Jupiter, and and all the kind of the storms on Jupiter. Just beautiful planet. Well, when I come home, and before you and I got on, I jumped over on my TV, and of course they have uh, uh, the sneak peek, on Disney Plus. And so seeing it on a big screen, I'm watching the back of the Razor Crest, and I didn't really notice it on my phone, but I'm like, holy mackerel, the back end is open. It's not like just the upper right hand engine is sparking. I'm like, oh my gosh, the whole back end is that's not good.
Yeah. The back ramp is open, and not only is it open, but it looks like it's trying to close and opening back up. It's like it's stuck.
Yeah.
It's it definitely is a it's gone. Apparently, it took a beating
Yeah.
before this trailer, whatever sequence it was in. So yeah, very very interesting. Um, then we got some Gamorrean guards in like a UFC ring fighting. What? Did you catch that?
I did, and you know what it made me think about, Aaron, was back, and you and I talked about this. John Favreau had posted a picture of a maquette, maybe 8, 9, 10 inches high, of a buff Gamorrean guard, and we're like, what could this be for? Because the ones we see in Return of the Jedi and so on, and animated ones are pretty big and rotund, and these guys are pretty buff, and now we see what they were using them in is this, like you said, UFC fight. Two of them going at it, two big Gamorrean guards. So now we know where they're being used. But that was pretty cool to see that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it really was, and apparently this is where a lot of the trailer is set, is around that fight, because you hear he's talking to this alien. Mando's talking to an alien, and he's like, "Yeah, we're wherever," and he's like, the alien's like, "Well, it's really not a good place for kids."
Yeah.
Mando's like, "Where I go, he goes."
Yeah.
And I thought you were going to say that. And next thing you know, there's a whole bunch of guys pulling guns on Mando, and which automatically you get going, oh yeah, he likes these odds.
Right. And then of course the clip that might have stole it all, and like you and I have just been talking about things that stand out. Obviously, Baby Yoda closing his pram when we see, what is it called, singing birds, right? They're called singing birds. Remember that?
Yes.
From season 1, and he closes it, and I was looking at, it's like I said, the what's trending on Twitter, and I was just looking at all the Mandalorian content, and they were showing that GIF of him closing it and how much it's going to be used, and they showed one of them. It says what Baby Yoda would say, or no, how Baby Yoda would respond to 2020. Boom, he closes his pram. No, doesn't want anything to do with 2020. But I thought that was so cute, and that was something I was going to ask you after I saw it, and I knew we were going to talk tonight. Something again that stuck out was he has the pram back, and I don't know, did they pull it out of the I was trying to think at the end. Well, they do leave Navarro, and he leaves Grief Karga and Cara Dune behind. And I don't believe he had the pram at that time, but this looks like the pram he had before. I don't know, if he's going to pick up another one or what, Yeah.
Somehow he gets it back or gets another one. I don't know. But obviously he does get one back, because that final scene of the trailer, that's what steals it because literally, all the guns get pulled on Mando, and next thing you know, you just see his wrist flick, and all those little missiles pop up ready to fire, and Baby Yoda's like, "Ooh!" He hits the button and ducks down.
He knows what they are.
he's not playing around.
No.
It's great.
Well, he's already so adorable now. People, how you're gonna not love him more? And but that was a great scene, and it makes me think, how many more wonderful scenes we're going to have of him. I in fact, before we got on, I made an effort to read the Entertainment Weekly article that came out last week, and it's interesting to hear Giancarlo Esposito. Am I saying his name right? He plays Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Moff Gideon. He says, I even get a little one-on-one time with Baby Yoda. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. And also, confirmed in that article 8 episodes, like season 1. That was something I was wondering about. They confirmed that, they, Favreau and Filoni and stuff like that. So, and Favreau even said they're all roughly equal in length.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah.
So we know. So we've gotten a lot of information. We've gotten the trailer, which doesn't tell us anything, but gets us hyped up, and we know there's going to be a pretty cool fight scene at this wannabe UFC fight.
Yeah.
We know it's coming out on the 30th. We know it's 8 episodes, and there's another article that I haven't read, but I saw somebody reference who I trust, and I haven't had a chance to go in and read it. But apparently in this article, in this interview that Favreau gave, it talks about seeing some of the origins of the First Order in this.
Oh, well, right. No, yes, and this is the time frame. As you and I know, as it would build up, if it's 7 years after Return of Jedi, so about 23 years before The Force Awakens, so it's right there.
Yeah.
Well, that leads into some other memorable scenes, right? Which is the seeing stormtroopers running, seeing the speeder bikes pop out of a larger ship, and in that Entertainment Weekly article, Giancarlo Esposito not only says he gets some one-on-one time, Moff Gideon with Baby Yoda, but he also has a bigger ship, hint, hint. And so he says that, a bigger ship, hint, hint, and so everyone's thinking Star Destroyer or something along those lines. Now, talking about, again, another thing that pops out, we see Cara Dune and Carl Weathers, Cara Dune and Grief Karga walking out of that archway that we know is on Navarro, where we saw a lot of cool scenes. And then the next clip we see is 3 or 4 of the ties that Giancarlo Esposito, Moff Gideon, got out of. And so bringing that back around to what you said, Aaron, we could start to say, hey, maybe this is the start of Imperial Remnant / beginning of the First Order with these kind of people. It'd be hard to know. Again, we know a bunch of Moffs were kind of independent after the second Death Star blew up and stuff like that. But yeah, we see more hardware, more Imperial stuff. The stormtroopers running looked like they were on a Star Destroyer, and they looked cleaner and not as rough as the ones protecting what was Werner Herzog's other clients. Yeah, his were pretty dirty and scuffed up, but those things stood out too. And then there's one other scene that was just incredible, and even Christian Baver wrote about it today at StarWars.com, which is the X-Wings up next to the Razor Crest. And you're like, whoa. And her question at StarWars.com was, are they friends or foes? Now they open their wings to attack formation, and then we see them chasing the Razor Crest. So I don't know. That'll be interesting to see what happens there. So just some more stuff that stuck out.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Those X-wings showing up was crazy. And friend and foe, I don't know. I mean, S-foils did get locked in attack positions. I just want to know, is Dave Filoni piloting them again?
Well, you and I know the one that he was in is now in our backyard here in Orlando at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. You and I have had our photos taken next to that X-wing. Has the blue stripe down the side of it.
That was the one he was in?
Yes, in fact, from the Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian. I don't know if you remember Filoni talking about this, where they needed to film that scene where him, Deborah Chow, and Rick Famuyiwa, I'm always messing up Rick's last name, but Dave Filoni's like, wait a minute, we don't have an X-Wing cockpit in the Los Angeles area. And so they were building that cockpit to be shipped to here, to Orlando for Galaxy's Edge. And so what they did was brought it into the volume, I think, and filmed those scenes. And once it was done, that was shipped here to Galaxy's Edge. And then, of course, last August, you and I were in there with Jason and got our pictures there, not knowing because Mandalorian hadn't come out yet, right? You and I were there in August. Mandalorian comes out in November, and then Disney Gallery, which we'll hopefully talk about here in a little bit, doesn't come out until this past May. And so we don't know that was the cockpit that they used. So I thought that was a pretty neat little piece of Mandalorian / Galaxy's Edge trivia.
Very cool. Very cool. No, for some reason I missed that tidbit when I was watching the gallery. I'll have to go back and rewatch it and see what else I missed. But that'll be cool because I am actually going back on the 25th to Galaxy's Edge. So I will have to go pay homage to Filoni's X-Wing.
Yeah, because there's that one, and you and I, because Resistance, the Rise of the Resistance wasn't open. Again, when there was that special called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Adventure Awaits. They put it on Disney Plus. It was originally shown last year, but in that they show, clips of Poe Dameron's X-Wing, the black and orange one, back by that ride. So when you and I were there, we didn't see that X-Wing back there. But those are the two. The one with the blue stripe you and I have been by, and then Poe Dameron's in the back there. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So, all right. So, wow. So, yeah. So Mandalorian, October 30th. And of course, once those episodes start, we will be going weekly and reviewing every single one as they come out. So be on the lookout for that as it starts airing at the end of October. So, all right. So with that, we will take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dig into the next two episodes of the Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We appreciate you hanging out with us this week. We are discussing. It's pretty much an all Mandalorian episode, isn't it?
Oh, it's perfect, man. This coming out today, because you and I were planning on covering, the third and fourth episodes of Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian, and then this thing hit, and it was perfect to put into news and then flow right into these third and fourth episodes.
Oh, absolutely. So we're looking, of course, right now at the series, Disney Gallery, Star Wars The Mandalorian, which aired exclusively on Disney Plus, and is a great behind-the-scenes look. It's an 8-episode series. It was a great look behind the scenes of what went into making The Mandalorian. In our last episode, we discussed episodes 1 and 2 of that. This week, we're looking at 3 and 4. Good episodes, and they're very informative. Episode 3 was called The Cast, and basically it sat down and looked at some of the major cast members of the show. We looked at Carl Weathers, Pedro Pascal, and Gina Carano, a.k.a. Grief Karga, The Mando, and Cara Dune. Great, very important. I enjoyed this episode in particular because it was nice to see the actors sitting down, just shooting the breeze, and hearing how they felt about their characters and about being involved in this literally groundbreaking series. What did you think of this episode?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, It's neat to see. I guess not only just to hear them speak about their characters, but also about filming together and filming scenes with each other, but also something that you as Star Wars fans you see it in them just how excited they are to be a part of this. I mean, like last year at Celebration Chicago, I was watching, online and watching the Mandalorian panel, and you could see it when these three came out. I mean, they were pumped then. It's no different here after the first season is shown. You can see how much they really enjoyed it, and did a great job. Gina Carano, you can tell that she is just so thankful and beside herself that she got this role, and what it means to her to work with someone like Carl Weathers and stuff like that. So that was really, really cool. And yeah, and Pedro too, and some of his antics. I don't know, you put some good stuff in show notes. Did you want to cover that? What Pedro had, what I loved, he had a good laugh at himself.
Absolutely. When you can laugh at yourself, you're having fun.
Yes.
Before we jump into Pedro real quick, I did want to touch on Gina real quick, because there was a big deal when they cast Gina Carano. They have strong female lead, great fantastic MMA fighter, now turned Hollywood actress. And she said one thing in particular about the role of Cara Dune that I struck me as interesting, because she's had a couple roles in some movies and stuff, and she said this is the first time that she's ever genuinely got into a character that she's portrayed. She's actually gotten it. She likes Cara. She at one point she's like, I actually get to be myself.
Yeah.
Which is
it's
fun.
Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect casting.
It really is, and she does a great job in that role, and playing opposite Pedro Pascal. Pedro, I mean, he was great. He tells a hilarious story. Of course, everybody has. If you have not seen The Mandalorian, I'm going to go ahead and give you a spoiler warning now, okay? If you haven't seen it, shame on you, but we still love you, but shame on you. And if you don't want it spoiled, don't listen to the next few minutes. But there's a scene at the end of the final episode where his helmet gets removed, and he's all bloodied up, and he's from an explosion that just happened, and he's all beat up and bloodied. He's got blood coming out of his ears, out of his nose. He looks like he just got ran over by a Mack truck. Well, the story is, as soon as they finished doing his makeup for that scene, he goes to walk out of the trailer, the makeup trailer, and walks into a 2x4 and bloodies his nose. He ends up getting 7 stitches. But he had to go to the ER in makeup.
Yeah.
And what's great is John Favreau is like, yeah, they saw him walk in. They're like, oh my God, he's on death's door. Get him in, get him in, get him in. And they rushed him in the back. And then they had to figure out what was real blood, what was fake blood. What was a real injury, what wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to do that, do it that day and get the stitches and come back to the set and really look beat up, Perfect. If you're going to do it that day.
Exactly. And from what I understand, from what they said, that's exactly what he did. As soon as he got done, he came right back and they shot the scene.
Yeah.
He got his stitches and he came right back. So, which is incredible. Pedro Pascal did say one thing that really stuck out to me. It's at the beginning of this episode. He's talking about the Mandalorian and always being in his armor and his helmet and everything. And he goes, and he made a statement where the character being in his armor and being constantly hiding in his armor makes kind of makes him relatable. And I'm going to read what he says. He goes, "We're all covered in our own armor, and we're terrified to take it off." And that's the thing that crosses him over into a character that we're all going to want to follow.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's true, because how many of people sit there and they put on they put on some Mandalorian armor, and they're one way online, they're one way on this on this social media, they're another way on this social media, and in person they're somebody completely different. I found that to be an interesting contrast and an interesting look at this character, and I thought you would really have a field day with that statement.
Oh, definitely. Well, from a psychological standpoint, what the psychological literature talks about, and I've talked to clients about this all the time, is the issue of what we call the public self and the private self. And just like you said, buddy, as humans, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, male or female, rich or poor, we all do present. We have a public self, and then there's our private self. And we do put the armor on to protect ourselves. We try to present better than maybe what we actually are, or even what we think of ourselves as. So yeah, that's huge. And that gets into that whole thing. You hear different actors talk about masks, and acting behind masks, and versus not. But yeah, so within psychology, we call it the public versus private self. And when you get into the private self, what kind of characters does that person have? And with the Mandalorian, just like Pedro Pascal says, yeah, he's the kind of person you want to follow, especially when you hear that line in the trailer we just heard, wherever he goes, I go. Here he is as a father figure and trying to do the right thing. And that's somebody you want to get behind.
Very much, very much. And it's a very, I loved that saying. I loved that look. And, you brought up the wherever he goes, I go. It just fits right into that personality. He's become that caretaker of this child. So,
yeah.
And
yes.
He's accepted that mission. So, very good, very good. The one other thing I wanted to hit on it from episode 3 is something I always knew there was somebody else behind the mask. It wasn't always Pedro. There was somebody else behind the mask. I didn't realize there were two somebody else's behind the mask before watching this episode. Of course, you have Pedro, Pascal, who's the Mandalorian. He's the lead. But he has there's two other gentlemen who step into the armor for different types of scenes. You have Lateef Crowder, who is the martial arts expert. He's the fighter. So anytime you see Mando fighting and he's doing all these martial art moves and flips and everything, it's Lateef Crowder in the armor, not Pedro Pascal. But then the other thing I found interesting is there's another guy named Brendan Wayne who is the gunslinger. So anytime we see him whipping out the gun and shooting, it's Brendan. It's not Pedro. I thought that would be something simple Pedro Pascal could have done.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of a number of scenes. One that with Lateef Crowder, that scene where he battles two Trandoshans, just as soon as he is walking back to his ship, right? And he battles him. That's Lateef Crowder in there. With the gunslinging, I think about the scene where you see Mando coming out of a door. He gets shot on his left pauldron, and it ricochets off, and he shoots to his left and shoots a stormtrooper. But I started thinking about it. How good are any of us at pulling a blaster, let alone a gun, out of a holster smoothly without it getting stuck, without, pulling it up and the gun's not fully in your hand? I could see a lot of potentials for mess up, but but yeah, John Wayne's grandson is Brendan Wayne, and he's just, just throwing the guns around and looking really cool.
Yes, definitely. It looks really cool. And I guess if you need to hire a gunslinger, John Wayne's grandson is the way to go because you can't get much better than the Duke.
Oh my gosh. That is so cool, man. It makes this, it makes this show even cooler that Brendan Wayne is working on it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, personally, I'm a big John Wayne fan. I love his movies. True Grit is one of my favorite of all time movies. So having his grandson involved just makes the show a little better.
Yeah, and in the Western feel, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
That was the feel they were wanting. So you get a Western gunslinger to gunsling for you.
It's all coming together on this show. This show has really got the magic touch.
It truly does. It truly, truly does. So, all right. So, any last thoughts on episode 3?
No, just really nice to see them there at the round table, talking to Dave and Jon Favreau. Yeah.
Very cool. Excellent. Same here. It was a lot of fun. And I loved hearing from the actors about the characters they're playing and hearing from the directors about the actors and working with them too was awesome as well. So, all right, episode 4 was up next. Of course, it's up next because it comes after 3. So episode 4, we're not talking about A New Hope. We're talking about technology. We're talking about the technology that went into The Mandalorian. And this was a fascinating episode, a fascinating look behind the scenes at the technology because, honestly, you have Jon Favreau, who has made some of the most technologically challenging movies coming from Hollywood with Iron Man. He directed the original Iron Man. Of course, we have The Jungle Book, the live-action Lion King, and, of course, now The Mandalorian. And it was interesting to see how all those movies and all the work he did in those movies ended up tying into and helping him prepare for this series.
Yeah, it's incredible. When you listen to this guy talk, you start to think about it. He's an actor, a writer, a director, a producer, and then when you hear him talk about his experiences on The Jungle Book and Lion King, and you see those clips, and you see him working with really smart people on those movies, and it's so neat to see the progression. And you're like, gosh, you're not only all these things, but you can see how technologically savvy he is. Versus, well, I'm a writer in Hollywood. Oh, I'm a director. I don't deal with that other stuff. Or I'm, like I said, actor, director, producer. No, I don't. But you can just tell this guy is so sharp, and really was wanting to move this thing and make it better and better. Just like I put in the show notes, he was just basically saying, yeah, with Jungle Book in particular, it was just taking too long. And he was asking himself, what's the ideal stage? And what's beautiful about this behind the scenes look is they show you behind the scenes of both the Jungle Book and the Lion King. Mm-hmm. And so he's smart and he gets everyone together and they make this happen. And it's just incredible, and it leads into the real big reveal of because I remember watching this. I'm like, how did they do this? They lead into talking about this thing called the volume, and this thing is it's unbelievable. And but you can see how it is a natural progression of the sets that they show us, Aaron, in the behind the scenes of the live action Jungle Book and the live action Lion King. You're like, yep, this makes sense. It takes it right there. But I think not only was it those, but I was listening to some podcast, and they were talking about the first time the volume was used was on Solo, and you really see it in the cockpit scenes when you see Han and Kira and Lando and Chewie, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And then, of course, boom, right into making these 8 episodes.
Very cool. Very cool. Yes. The volume is a completely different way to do things in Hollywood. Uh, for those of you who have not watched these gallery episodes, go watch them. You'll learn a lot. The volume actually is a 75-foot diameter circle of just screens that encompasses the set that they're filming on. And it basically gives them, they project the set on the screens, so as the camera's changing, they can change your perspective changes along with them. So it gives the illusion of a lot larger set at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah. They're not traveling to multiple countries. They're not shooting with the actors and directors and writers and crew and cosmic. They're not doing that on different terrains or countries or landscapes. They're not dealing with any of those problems. And just like you were saying, it's like they're shooting in a real environment. And when you hear Favreau talk, he says something that is just so cool. And talk about making it easier in post-production. One of the things he talked about was with green screens and blue screens, you have to go back and clean those colors off of, the actors, and particularly if you have in Star Wars some of the shinier helmets or outfits. And he said something. He says, we actually welcome, the reflections off of the Mandalorian's helmet. Like normally you would shy away from a helmet like that because it would cause all kinds of problems and all kinds of work to be done in post-production. It just made me think, Aaron, now about Boba Fett, how they don't have that issue because it's, the color scheme on that is not going to be a problem for Boba Fett. But with the volume, they show a close-up scene of Mando's face, and it's reflecting the actual stuff on the screen. And so as a director and a writer and in post-production, you don't have to change that. It's the reflections are actually correct in his mask and off his armor.
And it makes it a lot easier, from what I understand as well, from the fact that if they needed to, back in the days of green screens and blue screens, that when they have to go back and this would look great, but we need to shoot it from this angle here and make it to give it that look, then of course they have to adjust pretty much the entire set. They have to adjust the entire lighting to get that same look. Whereas with this, they just have to render the image differently, which is incredible. I think was it Giancarlo that was talking about having just the simple physical set of the crashed TIE fighter, but having this massive landscape around him with sunrise and everything just blinding, like it would be if you were out in the desert. It gives you a completely different feel than being on a traditional movie set. And you can tell from the series that it's got this you watch it, it feels like this massive budget, multinational sets that they've traveled all over the world filming. And really, they've stayed put pretty much and just filmed it.
Right, in Manhattan Beach, California.
Yep.
In that area. And, like you said, when he comes out and he has a darksaber in his hand, he said it's just so incredible to be able to he's experiencing it almost like we are. We're looking at him on that crashed TIE fighter and looking at the setting or rising sun or setting, I guess maybe setting sun behind him, and we're seeing it and he's seeing it. Versus trying to pretend, wait, what's behind me? What is it? And just amazing. And this is the thing, that the volume is the thing that has really allowed them to do what George wanted to do for years with live action. And George just, I think rightfully so, just said, no, I'm not going to make live action until it can look the way you really want it to look. And it was neat to see him on set, right? We see some of those clips where he's talking about it with the crew there, and Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, about, just how they, that's what he was wanting to get to. And to be able to do, something like 10 episodes, 10 million each, and then you have $100 million budget. But it just was never quite there for him. And understandably so, because we really see over the last 3, 4, 5 years that it really, was something that came together, past the green screens and blue screens. It's incredible what it can do. And, game engine technology and get the right cameras. And again, you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, they can do anything now. And it doesn't have to be, like you said, these massive sets in Tunisia or in Italy or anywhere. And put the money into that versus flying people all over the world,
Oh, absolutely. And it gives them the opportunity to do more in the long run, because they're not having to fly people all over the world. And I love the story that Dave and Favreau and Jon Favreau told, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, about how they did a video talking about the show and everything for Kathleen Kennedy to do at some Disney meeting, bigwig meeting, and they did it in the middle of the volume. They just had set up 2 director's chairs, sat there, and did this thing for Kathleen. And he goes, it was quite humorous because they're all sitting there thinking we're sitting in the middle of this massive, expensive set, and we're sitting in a 75 foot in diameter circle of projection screens.
Right. You don't know. And
tell.
now you can't. And I started thinking about, again, that scene where Mando's walking with the baby in the pram and he stops, and all of a sudden those 2 Trandoshans, 2 or 3, come in and he does that battle. They have enough set decoration, actual, props, and you can see him walking through the ground has a little bit of water. And on each side, there's enough rock formations that it blends in seamlessly, and you're like, holy crap, he's actually in a canyon area there. And then when you see the behind the scenes, you're like, oh my gosh, there's just a few things that they put in there to fool your eyes to make you think, yeah, this is real. Same thing when they're in, I didn't realize it, when they were in meeting with the client, and Werner Herzog's in there, obviously the Mandalorian's in there, and then you look at that clip and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like his desk, and the Mando walks in, and then you look back and they do have a few props that are actually real, but then behind it is those screens, and I'm like, I thought they were just inside of a big room, filming that scene, but that also was inside of the volume. And you're like, oh my gosh, maybe what is it? Does Filoni talk about it when the Razor Crest goes into that space station, right? That's the episode you were talking about where, Filoni comes in with Deborah Chow and Rick Famuyiwa, and they blow that thing up. But the way they set that up, the Razor Crest is sitting there, and they've got some natural props, and then the rest of that hangar, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even tell that what's real and what's not real in that hangar. Unbelievable, just incredible stuff.
it truly is incredible stuff. They do incredible work getting that taken care of. Um, any final thoughts on episode 4, my friend?
Yeah, just real quick. Favreau talks about how the lighting is always correct, which is so good. It allows the volume allows all the departments to work together more easily. It's neat. The actors are immersed. They're not having to imagine. Like I think about Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson having to imagine all these things. In episode 1, obviously, I think of episode 2, episode 3 for Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen having to imagine, all those different scenes. And when you watch episode 3 behind the scenes stuff, you see Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen on all kinds of green screen stuff, green screen sets, green screen props, and they have to imagine it. Whereas here, these actors, going back to the 3rd episode, they don't have to imagine it as much. So really cool. The other thing they talked about is being able to do pickups more easily. That's pretty cool. And really towards the end, you hear Bryce Dallas Howard, I think, talking about the concept of George's garage, George Lucas, and him saying that George back in the day felt that, they would have the technology to be able to do this in your garage. And didn't Bryce Dallas Howard say when she was on shooting episode 4 of season 1, she's like, we're in George's garage. And I thought that was really cool to end the episode.
Very cool indeed. So great discussion here on the galleries, episode 3 and 4. Next time we will be talking episodes 5 and 6. So if you want to share your thoughts with that, on that, or on any of these episodes we've discussed so far, feel free to let us know. You can message us on any of our social media accounts, whether it's Facebook, Star Wars Reactions, Twitter, SW Reactions Pod, or Instagram, SW Reactions. Check us out on any of those and let us know what you think. Or, of course, you can always email us, show@starwarsreactions.com. David, if somebody wants to talk Star Wars with you, my friend, how would they go about taking care of that?
Yeah, 2 places, my friend. The best one is Twitter, and it's David_Modders. That's last name is Modders. And I guess my handle is Jedi Psych, right? I'm a Jedi and a psychologist. And then the other one is David@StarWarsReactions.com. That's the email.
Very cool indeed. And of course, if you do want to talk Star Wars with me, the best way to do that is Twitter. TA Harris 121079 is the handle. And of course, you can always email me, Aaron@StarWarsReactions.com. Like I said, I will be at Galaxy's Edge on September 25th. So if you're there that day, stop me and say hi if you find me. I probably will be in Galaxy's Edge probably the majority of the day. I probably will spend a few minutes over at Toy Story Land because I haven't seen that yet. But definitely I'll be in Galaxy's Edge having the time of my life. So if you're in the area, stop by and say hi. David, my friend, been fun as always.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, perfect timing. So glad we were able to talk about the dropping of Mandalorian Season 2, the trailer. So fun to talk about it. Looking forward to covering it. Yeah, you and I will wrap up, our coverage of the Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian, and that'll flow right into, the first episode of Season 2.
Absolutely. It's going to be great. So a lot of fun stuff coming up. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, we want to thank all of you for listening. We do appreciate each and every one of you. We are thankful for each and every one of you. And we know life is still crazy right now, and we're still praying for every one of you. We're just, no reason we can't be one happy family. And that's what we're here for, trying to make that happen. So thank you all for listening. Remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.